The Galactic Empire, a sprawling interstellar government composed of hundreds of subjugated species, had long prided itself on its unstoppable military might. For millennia, no civilization had dared challenge its supremacy. That was, until a chance encounter with a small human exploration vessel in the Outer Rim sparked the Galactic Empire's first contact with humanity. Captain John Marshall of the UES Endeavour was a seasoned space explorer, but nothing could have prepared him for the sight that awaited his crew that fateful day. As their modest starship charted a course through a remote sector of the galaxy, the telltale shimmer of an interstellar warp drive materialized in the distance. Within moments, a massive Imperial cruiser emerged from the jump, its sleek, angular hull gleaming ominously under the light of nearby stars. By the gods, Marshall breathed, his eyes wide with a mix of awe and trepidation. Signal the crew to battle stations. We need to get out of here. Now. But it was too late. The Imperial vessel had already detected the Endeavor's presence and was rapidly closing the distance, its weapons systems powering up with an ominous hum. "They've locked onto us, Captain," the ship's sensor officer called out. "We've got incoming fire." Marshall gripped the arms of his command chair as a barrage of plasma bolts streaked toward the Endeavor. His crew braced themselves, but the small exploration vessel was no match for the Imperial cruiser's overwhelming firepower. Shields flickered and failed, and the Endeavor shuddered under the relentless assault. "Damage report," Marshall shouted, as alarms blared throughout the bridge. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. Life support failing in sections." The officer responded, his voice tinged with panic. "We can't take much more of this, sir." Marshall knew their only hope lay in escape. "All ahead full. Get us out of here, helmsman." The Endeavor's engines strained as the battered ship lurched forward, but the Imperial vessel kept pace, its devastating barrage unrelenting. Then, just as all seemed lost, a brilliant flash of light erupted from the cruiser's aft section, and the massive warship suddenly slowed, its weapons falling silent. "What the?" Marshall gaped, stunned by the unexpected turn of events. "Captain, sensors are detecting a small craft launching from the Imperial vessel," the sensor officer reported. "It appears to be a shuttlecraft, escaping the cruiser." Seized by a moment of daring, Marshall made a split-second decision. "Bring us around, helm. I want that shuttle in our sights." As the Endeavor maneuvered to intercept the fleeing craft, Marshall's eyes narrowed with determination. "Hail them and prepare to bring them aboard. We're going to find out what's going on." Moments later, the small shuttlecraft was secured in the Endeavor's hangar bay, and a team of armed Marines stood ready to greet its occupants. Marshall, flanked by his first officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Nguyen, strode toward the airlock, his expression grim but resolute. "Open it up," he ordered. With a hiss of pressurized air, the airlock doors slid open, and two figures emerged, a tall, imposing alien in ornate battle armor, and a smaller, humanoid individual clad in tattered robes. "I am Captain John Marshall of the United Expeditionary Space Force," Marshall announced, his voice clear and unwavering. "You are aboard the UES Endeavour. Identify yourselves." The alien stepped forward, its eyes gleaming with a mixture of defiance and desperation. "I am General Craxus of the Galactic Empire. This is my prisoner, a human trader named Zora." He gestured toward the smaller figure, who remained silent, her head bowed. Marshall's brow furrowed, his mind racing to process the implications of this unexpected encounter. "A human trader? Explain yourself, General." Craxus let out a mirthless laugh. "This creature has betrayed the Empire. She has provided the humans with information that has cost us dearly in this conflict." He spat the words with contempt. "Now I find myself forced to flee like a coward, my command in ruins." The human woman, Zora, finally raised her head, her eyes meeting Marshall's with a quiet resolve. "Captain, you must listen to me. The Galactic Empire poses a grave threat to your people. They will stop at nothing to subjugate and exploit humanity." She paused, her voice tinged with urgency. You must warn your leaders. The Empire will come, and they will not show mercy." Marshall's expression hardened as he considered Zora's warning. He knew that the fate of his species now hung in the balance, and the decisions he made in the coming days could alter the course of human history forever. "General Craxus," he said, his tone uncompromising, "you are our prisoner now. Take them to the brig and have the crew prepare the Endeavor for a return to Earth. We have much to discuss with our leaders." As the Marines escorted the captives away, Marshall took a deep, steadying breath. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake in underestimating humanity, and now the stage was set for a conflict that would test the very limits of human resilience and determination. The journey back to Earth was a tense and sobering affair. Captain John Marshall pored over the intelligence gathered from the captured Imperial officer, General Craxus, and the human traitor Zora, trying to piece together the full scope of the impending threat. "So you're telling me the Galactic Empire has been monitoring our development for decades?" Marshall asked, his brow furrowed with concern. Zora nodded gravely. "Yes, Captain. They've been carefully observing humanity, cataloging our technological progress and military capabilities. They see us as a potential threat to their dominance." Craxus, his hands bound in energy restraints, sneered. "You humans are little more than savages, unworthy of inclusion in the glorious Galactic Empire. Your primitive world should be grateful that we have deigned to bring you into the fold." Marshall fixed the Imperial officer with a steely gaze. "And what happens to those who refuse your generous offer?" Craxus's eyes narrowed. "Resistance is crushed. Entire worlds are reduced to ash if they dare to defy the will of the Empire." Zora spoke up, her voice tinged with a sense of urgency. "Captain, you must understand the gravity of the situation. The Galactic Empire operates on a scale that is beyond our comprehension. Their military might is staggering, and their thirst for conquest is insatiable. If we do not act quickly, they will overwhelm us with sheer force of numbers." Marshall leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. "Then we must warn the United Nations, mobilize our defenses, prepare for the inevitable invasion. It may already be too late," Zora warned. "The Empire has likely detected the Endeavor's escape and will be sending a sizable force to subjugate your homeworld." The captain's jaw tightened. "Then we'll be ready for them. I'll dispatch a message to Earth immediately, urging them to begin evacuation protocols and fortify our defenses." As the Endeavor streaked through the void, Marshall couldn't help but feel a sense of dread. He knew that the fate of humanity now rested on the decisions made by Earth's leaders in the coming days. Would they heed the warning and prepare for the coming onslaught? Or would they dismiss the threat as the ravings of a mad woman and a disgraced Imperial officer? Upon their arrival, Marshall wasted no time in convening an emergency meeting with the United Nations Security Council. Zora and Craxus were brought before the assembled representatives, their captors keeping a close watch on the proceedings. "Gentlemen, ladies," Marshall began, his voice grave, "I bring you a dire warning from the Outer Rim. The Galactic Empire has set its sights on Earth, and they will not rest until they have brought us under their heel." Murmurs of disbelief and skepticism rippled through the chamber, but Marshall pressed on. "I know it's hard to believe, but the evidence is clear. This woman," he gestured toward Zora, "is a human who has defected from the Empire. And this creature," he nodded toward Craxus, "is a high-ranking Imperial officer who was forced to flee his command after a disastrous encounter with our exploration vessel." Zora stepped forward, her eyes pleading. "Please, you must listen to us. The Galactic Empire is a vast, sprawling interstellar government that has subjugated countless civilizations under its rule. They will not hesitate to use overwhelming force to bring Earth into the fold." Craxus scoffed. "Fools! You cannot possibly hope to stand against the might of the Galactic Empire. Your primitive weapons and outdated technology will be swept aside like chaff before the wind." The council members exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the situation palpable in the air. Finally, the Secretary General spoke up, his voice tinged with skepticism. "Even if what you say is true, Captain Marshall, how can we be certain that this is not some elaborate ruse? How do we know we can trust the word of a traitor and a captured enemy officer? Marshall's jaw tightened. I understand your skepticism, but I can assure you that every word they have spoken is the truth. The Galactic Empire is real, and they are coming. We must act quickly to prepare our defenses. The Secretary General sighed heavily. Very well, Captain. We will convene a special session to discuss this matter further. In the meantime, see that our guests are kept under close watch. As the council members filed out, Marshall caught Zora's gaze, a silent understanding passing between them. The fate of humanity now hung in the balance, and they would need to convince the leaders of Earth to take decisive action before it was too late. The days that followed were a flurry of intense debate and frantic preparations as the United Nations grappled with the revelations brought forth by Captain John Marshall and his captives, Zora and General Craxus. Despite the initial skepticism, Zora's impassioned pleas and Craxus' begrudging admissions slowly began to sway the council members. The sheer scale and power of the Galactic Empire, as described by the two unlikely witnesses, was simply too overwhelming to dismiss outright. If what they say is true, the Secretary General said during a heated session, then we are facing an existential threat the likes of which humanity has never encountered. The devastation wrought by the Empire's forces could be catastrophic. Marshall nodded solemnly. That is precisely why we must act with the utmost urgency. Every moment we waste is a moment the Empire could be mobilizing their invasion force. Craxus, still held under heavy guard, let out a derisive laugh. You fools still do not understand the futility of your efforts. The Galactic Empire will crush your pathetic resistance with ease. Your primitive weapons and antiquated technology stand no chance against our might. Zora shot the Imperial officer a withering glare. That is where you are wrong, General. Humanity has a capacity for resilience and innovation that you have grossly underestimated. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the decision before them palpable in the air. Finally, the Secretary General rose, his expression grim but resolute. Very well, then. We must prepare for war. In the weeks that followed, the nations of Earth mobilized with a feverish intensity rarely seen in human history. Military forces were bolstered, defensive networks reinforced, and emergency protocols put into place across the globe. At the forefront of these efforts was Colonel Michael Steelheart, a seasoned military strategist handpicked by the UN to spearhead the human resistance against the impending Galactic Empire invasion. Steelheart pored over the intelligence gathered from Zora and Craxus, studying the strengths and weaknesses of the Imperial war machine. He knew that conventional tactics would not be enough to overcome the sheer scale and firepower of the enemy forces. We need to think outside the box, Steelheart said, addressing a gathered group of top military commanders. The Galactic Empire may have the numbers and the technology, but we have the home field advantage. We know this planet better than they ever will. The colonel's eyes gleamed with determination as he outlined his audacious plan. We'll use their overconfidence against them. Draw them in, then hit them hard where they least expect it. Across the globe, a network of secret military outposts and underground research facilities sprang to life, each one dedicated to the development of innovative new technologies and unconventional tactics to counter the Imperial threat. Meanwhile, Zora worked tirelessly alongside the UN's top scientists, sharing her knowledge of the Galactic Empire's strengths and weaknesses. Her insights proved invaluable. And soon, prototype weapons and defensive systems were being tested and deployed at an unprecedented rate. The Empire thinks they know us, Zora said, her voice filled with a quiet resolve. But they have no idea what humanity is capable of when our very existence is at stake. As the days turned to weeks, the world held its breath, waiting for the inevitable clash that would determine the fate of the human race. And when the first wave of Imperial forces finally arrived, the defenders of Earth were ready. Streaking through the skies, the sleek Angular vessels of the Galactic Empire emerged from the darkness of space, their armaments primed for a swift and merciless conquest. But as they approached Earth's orbit, a series of devastating energy bursts tore through their ranks, crippling scores of the massive warships. "What is the meaning of this?" Craxus roared, his face contorted with rage as he watched the unfolding battle from his heavily guarded cell. How dare these insignificant humans resist the might of the Empire? Zara regarded the captured Imperial officer with a small, triumphant smile. "You were wrong, General. Humanity is far from insignificant." On the ground, Colonel Steelheart and his forces unleashed a barrage of cutting-edge weaponry, their carefully planned ambushes and guerrilla tactics throwing the invading Imperial legions into disarray. Wave after wave of the enemy's elite forces were met with unyielding resistance, their technological superiority proving no match for the human defenders' cunning and adaptability. As the battle raged on, a growing sense of awe and pride swelled within the hearts of the people of Earth. For the first time in their history, they were standing unified against a common foe, their differences cast aside in the face of an existential threat. And in that moment, they knew that they would not go down without a fight. The initial skirmish between the Galactic Empire's invasion force and the defenders of Earth had been a resounding victory for humanity. But Colonel Michael Steelheart knew it was only the beginning of a long and arduous struggle. "They'll be back," he told the assembled military leaders, his brow furrowed with concern. "And in greater numbers. We've angered the Empire, and they will not rest until they've crushed us." Zara, who had become an invaluable advisor to the human resistance, nodded solemnly. "The Colonel is right. The Galactic Empire does not tolerate defiance. They will throw everything they have at us, and they will not stop until Earth is under their control." Around the table, the faces of the seasoned commanders grew grim. They had all witnessed the devastating power of the Imperial war machine firsthand, and they knew that their current defenses, no matter how innovative, would not be enough to withstand the full brunt of the Empire's wrath. "Then we must redouble our efforts," General Harding, the grizzled head of the United Nations Military Command, said. "Every inch of our homeworld must be fortified, and our people must be prepared to fight with every fiber of their being." Steelheart nodded. "Agreed. But we can't simply hunker down and wait for the Empire to come to us. We need to take the fight to them, disrupt their operations, and buy ourselves more time to strengthen our defenses." The Colonel's eyes gleamed with a determined fire as he outlined his audacious plan. "We'll hit their supply lines, their staging areas, their communication hubs. We'll make them bleed, force them to divert resources away from the main invasion." The gathered commanders exchanged uneasy glances, but Steelheart pressed on, his voice unwavering. "It's a risky strategy, I know, but it's the only way we can buy ourselves the time we need to prepare for the inevitable showdown." Zora placed a hand on the Colonel's arm, her expression solemn. "You understand that the Empire will not take this lightly. They will retaliate with overwhelming force, and the casualties on our side will be catastrophic." Steelheart met her gaze evenly. "I know, but we have no choice. The fate of our species hangs in the balance. We must be willing to make the necessary sacrifices." The decision made, the human resistance sprang into action, launching a series of daring raids and sabotage operations across the globe. Specialized teams of highly trained soldiers, equipped with the latest in cutting-edge technology, struck at the heart of the Imperial invaders, disrupting their supply lines, disabling their communication networks, and sowing confusion and chaos among the enemy ranks. The Galactic Empire, unaccustomed to such bold and tenacious resistance, was caught off guard by the ferocity of the human counterattack. Their initial plans for a swift and decisive conquest were thrown into disarray, and the flow of reinforcements and material to the front lines began to slow to a trickle. But the respite was short-lived. Incensed by the human defiance, the Galactic Emperor himself ordered the deployment of his most formidable assets to Earth, determined to crush the insolent upstarts once and for all. Unleash the full might of the Imperial war machine. The Emperor raged, his voice echoing through the command chambers of the flagship. Lay waste to their pitiful cities, and leave no trace of their wretched existence. Mighty battleships, bristling with advanced weaponry, rumbled to life, their massive engines propelling them toward the blue and green gem that was Earth. Legions of elite shock troops, encased in gleaming armored suits, readied themselves for the coming onslaught, their weapons primed for a merciless slaughter. Back on Earth, Steelheart and his commanders braced themselves for the inevitable, their eyes hardened with determination. They knew that the battle to come would be the fiercest they had ever faced, a true test of humanity's resolve and resilience. "This is it, people," Steelheart said, his voice carrying a quiet urgency. "The Galactic Empire is coming, and they won't stop until we're all dead. But we will not go down without a fight. For the sake of our homes, our families, our very future, we will stand firm against the invaders. No matter the cost, we will prevail." A roar of approval echoed through the command center, the sound of human defiance ringing out against the looming shadow of the Galactic Empire's wrath. The stage was set for the ultimate showdown, a clash that would determine the fate of humanity and reverberate through the stars for generations to come. The skies above Earth burned with the fury of 1,000 suns as the Galactic Empire's invasion force descended upon the defenseless planet. Massive warships, their hulls glowing with the power of advanced plasma cannons and energy shields, unleashed devastating barrages upon the hastily constructed human defense networks. Steelheart and his commanders watched the unfolding battle with a mixture of awe and dread, their eyes fixed on the tactical displays that relayed the grim progress of the Imperial onslaught. "They're tearing through our defenses like they're made of paper," Harding growled, his fist clenching in frustration. "We're losing ground by the minute." Zara, her face etched with concern, placed a hand on the general's arm. "Have faith, General. The people of Earth have not yet begun to fight." Steelheart's gaze hardened as he studied the tactical data, his mind racing to find a way to turn the tide of the battle. "We need to buy more time. Divert all available forces to the key strategic points, the cities, the industrial centers, the communication hubs. We have to slow them down, no matter the cost." The orders were relayed with a sense of urgency, and soon the skies above Earth's major population centers erupted in a furious clash of advanced technologies. Human fighters, nimble and maneuverable, darted between the hulking Imperial warships, unleashing barrages of energy missiles and rail gunfire. On the ground, heavily armored ground vehicles and mecha suits engaged the enemy's shock troops in brutal close-quarters combat, their superior mobility and adaptability neutralizing the Imperial soldiers' raw firepower. For every mile of ground the Galactic Empire gained, they paid a heavy price in blood and resources. The human defenders, driven by an unbreakable will to protect their homeworld, fought with a ferocity that confounded the veteran Imperial legions. Craxus, still confined to his cell, watched the unfolding battle with a growing sense of disbelief and rage. "Impossible," he snarled, his eyes narrowing as he witnessed the humans' tenacious resistance. "How dare these primitives defy the might of the Galactic Empire?" Zara, standing guard outside the cell, fixed the captured officer with a stern gaze. "You underestimated us, General. Humanity has a way of rising to the occasion when our very existence is at stake." Craxus let out a derisive laugh. "Fool, your pitiful resistance will only delay the inevitable. The Empire will crush you, just as it has crushed countless civilizations before." Zora's expression hardened. "That's where you're wrong. The people of Earth are not like the others. We will fight to the last breath. And we will never surrender." The battle raged on, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. But as the hours turned to days, the humans began to gain the upper hand. Their innovative tactics, combined with the unwavering resolve of the civilian populace, slowly eroded the Imperial forces' numerical advantage. Steelheart, his uniform stained with grime and soot, stood before his commanders, his eyes alight with a fierce determination. "We're holding them off, But we can't sustain this for much longer. We need to find a way to break their momentum, turn the tide of the battle in our favor. Harding, his grizzled features etched with exhaustion, nodded grimly. I agree. We've bought ourselves some time, but the Empire is regrouping. They'll be back, and in greater force than ever before. Zara, who had been closely monitoring the enemy's movements, stepped forward. I may have a plan, but it's risky. We'll need to strike at the heart of the Imperial command structure, disrupt their communications and logistics. Steelheart's brow furrowed as he considered her proposal. If we pull this off, it could cripple the Empire's ability to coordinate their forces. But the odds of success are slim, and the casualties could be catastrophic. The commanders exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the decision before them palpable in the air. Finally, Steelheart nodded, his jaw set with determination. Do it. We have to take that chance. The fate of humanity is at stake. As the sun set over the battered cities of Earth, the human resistance launched its audacious counteroffensive, their every move a carefully choreographed dance of valor and cunning. The Imperial forces, caught off guard by the tenacity and ingenuity of their foes, found themselves increasingly outmaneuvered and outmatched. And in the heart of the Galactic Empire, the Emperor himself watched with growing unease as reports of the human resistance's victories filtered in, shattering his confidence in the eventual subjugation of the defiant planet. Impossible, he hissed, his knuckles turning white, as he gripped the arms of his throne. These humans will pay dearly for their insolence. The stage was set for a final, climactic showdown that would determine the fate of humanity and the Galactic Empire's dominion over the stars. The human resistance's bold counteroffensive struck at the heart of the Galactic Empire's invasion force, disrupting their communications, supply lines, and command structure with a series of daring raids and precision strikes. Led by the brilliant tactical mind of Colonel Michael Steelheart, the defenders of Earth fought with a ferocity and adaptability that confounded the veteran Imperial legions. As the battle raged on, the tide slowly began to turn in humanity's favor. Steelheart's carefully planned ambushes and guerrilla tactics, combined with the unwavering determination of the civilian populace, eroded the Imperial forces' numerical advantage and forced them into a defensive posture. "They're being pushed back," Harding exclaimed, his eyes fixed on the tactical displays as reports of the Resistance's victories poured in. "Our people are holding the line, and the Empire's momentum is slowing." Zara, who had been instrumental in providing the human commanders with invaluable intelligence about the Galactic Empire's weaknesses, nodded grimly. "This is only the beginning. The Empire will not take this lightly. They will respond with overwhelming force." Steelheart's jaw tightened. "I know, but we've bought ourselves some precious time. Now we need to use it to shore up our defenses and prepare for the next wave of the invasion." As the human resistance consolidated its gains, the Galactic Emperor's fury knew no bounds. His once unstoppable forces were being forced to retreat, their vaunted technological superiority proving no match for the ingenuity and tenacity of their earthborn foes. "Unacceptable," the Emperor roared, his eyes blazing with rage. "Summon my most elite legions. Bring the full might of the Imperial war machine to bear on these insolent humans. I want their cities reduced to ash, their people crushed beneath our boots." The Emperor's command sent shockwaves through the Imperial hierarchy, and soon, a massive armada of state-of-the-art warships and legions of battle-hardened shock troops began to assemble, poised to unleash a devastating counterattack on the defiant planet. Back on Earth, Steelheart and his commanders worked tirelessly to fortify the human defenses, drawing upon the ingenuity and resourcefulness of the civilian population. Underground bunkers were reinforced, anti-aircraft batteries were deployed, and a network of guerrilla outposts was established across the globe, ready to harass the invading Imperial forces. Zara, her eyes filled with a mixture of determination and trepidation, stood at Steelheart's side, offering her expertise and counsel. "The Empire is mobilizing their full strength. This next assault will be the fiercest we've seen yet. Our people must be ready to withstand the onslaught." Steelheart nodded, his expression grim. "They will be. We've come too far to surrender now. We'll hold the line, no matter the cost." As the Imperial Armada approached Earth's orbit, the human defenders braced themselves for the inevitable clash. The skies above the planet's major cities erupted in a dazzling display of firepower, as the two sides engaged in a fierce battle for supremacy. This time, the Galactic Empire's forces were better prepared, their seasoned commanders employing a combination of overwhelming firepower, advanced tactical maneuvers, and devastating new weapons. The human resistance, despite their best efforts, found themselves slowly being pushed back, their defenses crumbling under the relentless assault. Harding, his face etched with a mix of frustration and determination, turned to Steelheart. "We're losing ground, Colonel. Our people are fighting with everything they've got, but the Empire's forces are simply too powerful." Steelheart's brow furrowed as he studied the tactical data, his mind racing to find a way to turn the tide of the battle. "We can't give up, General. There has to be a way to break their momentum." Zara, who had been monitoring the enemy's movements, suddenly straightened, her eyes widening with a glimmer of hope. "Wait. I think I've found a weakness. If we can disrupt their communication network, it might give us the opening we need to turn the tables." Steelheart's expression brightened as he grasped the implications of her plan. "General, get our best teams ready. We're going to strike at the heart of the Imperial command structure." As the human resistance launched its daring counterattack, the Galactic Emperor watched the unfolding battle with growing unease. The humans, despite their technological inferiority, refused to be cowed, their resilience and adaptability proving to be a formidable obstacle to his grand designs. "Impossible," the Emperor muttered, his brow furrowed with a mixture of frustration and disbelief. How dare these insignificant creatures defy the might of the Galactic Empire? But even as the words left his lips, reports began to filter in of the human resistance's latest victory, a devastating strike that had crippled the Imperial communication network, sowing chaos and confusion among the invading forces. The Emperor's grip on his armrest tightened, his knuckles turning white. The humans, it seemed, were far more than mere primitives. And if they continued to hold their ground, the very foundations of the Galactic Empire could be shaken to their core. The stage was set for the ultimate showdown, a clash that would determine the fate of humanity and the future of the known universe. The human resistance's daring strike at the heart of the Galactic Empire's communication network sent shockwaves through the invading forces, sowing chaos and confusion among the seasoned Imperial commanders. Steelheart and his team of elite operatives had successfully breached the enemy's secure channels, flooding them with false intelligence and disrupting their ability to coordinate their devastating attacks. "It's working," Harding exclaimed, his eyes fixed on the tactical displays as reports poured in of the Imperial forces' growing disarray. "The Emperor's vaunted legions are faltering. We have to press our advantage before they can regroup." Steelheart nodded grimly, his mind already racing with plans for the next phase of the counteroffensive. "Agreed. But we can't let our guard down. The Empire will not take this lightly. They'll be coming at us with everything they've got." Zara, who had been instrumental in providing the crucial intelligence that enabled the Resistance's successful strike, stepped forward, her expression grave. "The Colonel is right. The Galactic Empire has never faced a foe like us before. They will not hesitate to employ their most devastating weapons to crush our defiance." The human commanders exchanged uneasy glances, their resolve tempered by the looming dread of the Empire's inevitable retaliation. They had witnessed firsthand the sheer destructive power of the Imperial war machine, and they knew that the price of their victory would be measured in the lives of countless innocent civilians. "Then we must be ready to meet them head-on," Steelheart declared, his voice unwavering. "Our people have endured too much to surrender now. We will fight to the last breath, and we will not let the Empire's atrocities go unanswered." As the human resistance launched its renewed offensive, the Galactic Emperor's fury knew no bounds. His once mighty legions, caught off guard by the unexpected and devastating strike, were in disarray, their vaunted technological superiority proving no match for the ingenuity and tenacity of their earthborn foes. Unacceptable, the Emperor raged, his eyes blazing with a malevolent fury. These insolent humans will pay dearly for their defiance. Unleash the full might of the Imperial war machine. Spare no expense, no tactic. Crush them, annihilate them, until not a single trace of their existence remains. The order sent shockwaves through the Imperial hierarchy, and soon a terrifying new wave of devastation descended upon the beleaguered planet. Massive warships, bristling with powerful plasma cannons and energy beams, bombarded the human cities from orbit, reducing once thriving metropolises to smoldering ruins. On the ground, legions of heavily armored shock troops, clad in advanced exoskeletons and wielding devastating pulse rifles, swept through the countryside, systematically exterminating any and all resistance. The skies above the embattled cities erupted in a dazzling display of firepower as the human defenders fought with every ounce of their strength to hold the line. Steelheart, his uniform tattered and his face etched with the strain of battle, coordinated the desperate counterattack, his mind racing to find a way to turn the tide. "We can't hold them off much longer," he shouted into the calm, his voice laced with frustration. "If we don't find a way to disable their orbital bombardment, we'll be wiped out." Zara, her eyes reflecting the grim determination of her people, stepped forward, her expression resolute. "Then we must strike at the heart of the Imperial fleet, take out their command and control, and we may just have a chance." Harding, his grizzled features hardening, nodded in agreement. "It's a risky plan, but it's our only hope. I'll gather the best of our forces. We'll hit them hard and fast, before they can react." As the human resistance prepared to launch its audacious counterattack, the Galactic Emperor watched the unfolding battle with a growing sense of unease. The humans, despite their technological inferiority, had proven to be a far more formidable foe than he had ever anticipated. "Impossible," the Emperor muttered, his knuckles turning white as he gripped the arms of his throne. "These creatures should have been crushed long ago. What sorcery do they wield that allows them to defy the might of the Galactic Empire?" But even as the words left his lips, reports began to filter in of the human resistance's latest strike, a devastating assault that had crippled the Imperial fleet's communication network, leaving the massive warships vulnerable and disorganized. The Emperor's eyes narrowed, his expression darkening with a mixture of rage and apprehension. If the humans continued to gain ground, the very foundations of the Galactic Empire could be shaken to their core. The stage was set for the ultimate showdown, a clash that would determine the fate of humanity and the future of the known universe. The human resistance's audacious plan to strike at the heart of the Galactic Empire's orbital fleet was a desperate gambit, but one that Steelheart and his commanders knew they had to take. With the devastating bombardment from the Imperial warships raining down upon the battered cities of Earth, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. "This is it, people," Steelheart said, his voice carrying a quiet urgency as he addressed the elite team of operatives who would spearhead the counterattack. "We've pushed the Empire to the brink, but they're still coming at us with everything they've got. If we don't disable their orbital capabilities, we won't have a planet left to defend." Zara, her eyes gleaming with a resolute determination, stepped forward. "The Colonel is right. This is our last chance to turn the tide of this war. We must succeed, no matter the cost." The human resistance fighters, their faces etched with a mix of fear and unwavering resolve, nodded in agreement. They knew the risks were high, but the alternative, surrender to the merciless onslaught of the Galactic Empire, was unthinkable. As the small strike force made their way toward the Imperial fleet, the skies above the embattled cities erupted in a furious clash of advanced technologies. Human fighters, their weapons blazing, darted between the hulking warships, unleashing barrages of precision-guided missiles and energy bolts. On the ground, armored ground vehicles and mecha suits engaged the enemy's shock troops in brutal close-quarters combat, their superior mobility and agility neutralizing the Imperial soldiers' raw firepower. Steelheart, his eyes fixed on the tactical displays, coordinated the human defenders' desperate counterattack, his mind racing to find the critical weaknesses in the Empire's defenses. We've got to buy the strike team as much time as possible. Pour everything we've got into those warships. Focus on their main power systems and communications arrays. The human forces unleashed a relentless barrage of advanced weaponry, their carefully targeted strikes slowly chipping away at the Imperial fleet's defenses. But the massive warships, protected by powerful energy shields and bristling with devastating firepower, continued to pound the cities below, their merciless bombardment reducing once thriving metropolises to smoldering ruins. Meanwhile, the elite strike team, led by Zara and a handful of the Resistance's most skilled operatives, stealthily made their way through the chaos, narrowly avoiding detection as they closed in on the heart of the Imperial command structure. "We're nearing the target," Zara whispered into her comm, her voice betraying a hint of tension. "But the defenses are tighter than we anticipated. We'll need to move fast if we're going to have any chance of success." Steelheart's brow furrowed as he processed the information, his mind racing to formulate a contingency plan. "Copy that, Zara. We'll do our best to keep the pressure on, but you'll have to move quickly. The longer this drags on, the more casualties we'll take." The strike team pressed forward, their movements swift and precise as they navigated the labyrinth of the Imperial fleet's internal systems. Dodging enemy patrols and disabling security protocols, they finally reached the heart of the command center, where the fleet's main control systems were housed. "We're in position," Zara reported, her voice laced with a sense of triumph. "Initiating the override sequence now." Back on the surface, the human defenders fought with a renewed fervor, their weapons unleashing a hail of devastating firepower upon the Imperial warships. Slowly but surely, the mighty vessels began to falter, their shields weakening and their weapon systems malfunctioning. Steelheart, his eyes alight with a glimmer of hope, watched the unfolding battle with bated breath. "Come on, Zara. Just a little more time." Suddenly, a series of massive explosions rocked the Imperial fleet, sending shockwaves through the entire formation. The warships, their command and control systems crippled, began to drift erratically, their devastating bombardment grinding to a halt. "We did it." Zara's voice crackled over the comm, tinged with a mixture of triumph and relief. "The fleet is in disarray. Get your people out of there. We're pulling back to the extraction point." As the human defenders, their morale soaring, pushed forward with renewed vigor, the Galactic Emperor watched the unfolding disaster with a growing sense of dread. His once invincible fleet, the very embodiment of the Empire's power, was being torn apart by the audacious and relentless human resistance. "Impossible," the Emperor muttered, his expression contorting with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "How dare these insignificant creatures defy the might of the Galactic Empire?" But even as the words left his lips, reports continued to stream in of the human counterattack's stunning success. The Imperial forces, their command structure shattered, and their communications in disarray, were struggling to mount a coordinated defense against the relentless onslaught of the Earthborn defenders. The stage had been set for a decisive showdown, a clash that would determine the fate of humanity and the very future of the known universe. And as the smoke cleared and the dust settled, it became increasingly clear that the Galactic Empire had met its match in the resilient and unyielding people of Earth.